Hello, welcome to RAVE. My name is Eric Smith. I'm the owner and president of Redwood Art Group. With me is Hannah Smith, our social media manager. We're so happy to have you joining us. We had a great time in yesterday's session. We had over 1,400 page views and 406 new viewers that joined us, and we're very happy about that. All very exciting, and I think today's session is going to be just as captivating.
We want to welcome all of you that participate in the art industry, whether you are an art gallery owner, a frame shop owner, an art dealer, a designer, an architect, or even simply just an art lover. We've designed the first 2 days of RAVE with you in mind, including tonight, and we want you all to know that the artists have been educated in selling to the trade, and we encourage you to reach out to them in their guest books on their booth page. We've got quite the lineup this evening that'll be entertaining, engaging, and fun. So cheers.
Cheers. Here's to Pommery Champagne, the video you just watched. Oh.
And the video you just watched was a sneak peek into their incredible art installations filmed throughout Maison Pommery in Champagne, France. We are so pleased to work with them and have them again as a sponsor.
That video is so cool. I mean, they go down below and they have art and installations and everything. It's really cool. I personally can't wait to start traveling again and see those installations in person. Pommery has been a major player in the world of art since its creation, and to stay faithful to the memory of Madame Pommery, they continue exhibiting contemporary art as the main thrust of their patronage.
So make sure to check out this Pommery story under the sponsors tab on our RAVE website.
So let's talk about tonight's events. What an amazing lineup. We'll be discussing the future of art fairs and really kind of the future of events, as well as avenues for art sales. Those are our two panel discussions. And then we'll highlight about 10 or 11 artists throughout the evening and talk to you about them. So let me kind of fill you in on the concept of RAVE. If you're just joining us for the first time, obviously, the pandemic put the brakes on all live events, whether they be concerts or what we do, trade shows, or B2B or B2C events, and everything has stopped, including a lot of sporting goods events or sporting events. So, and most of you know us for our live events from San Diego to New York to Santa Fe. We have Dallas, we have Miami, events in Miami, 8 events total in a year. And they've all just stopped. So we created Redwood Art Group virtual events, and it just happened to spell RAVE. How cool is that? We will be going back to live events, and we're going to talk to David O'Drain about that in a little bit and the timing and things. Starting in September in Brooklyn, October in San Diego, November, we'll be back in New York. And then December, we go to Miami for the Art Basel events, Red Dot and Spectrum. So the purpose now is to keep our community together, keep everybody active, keep people collecting, keep people buying art. And, and that's what this RAVE event is about. And specifically to you trade people, you designers, like this is normally the time where we do Art Expo New York. And it's the trade event for art, contemporary art. And the first day we only open to the trade, the first day and a half. So, and a lot of people buy wholesale. And that's what it's about tonight. The artists, we've had some sessions with them and explained to them, those that weren't savvy on the lingo and how people buy as designers and architects and obviously galleries and how to broaden their distribution. So they're educated about that. So tonight we want to create a great positive virtual experience, introducing you to new artists, new works, new stories, and hopefully you'll go out and buy some Pommery and try some new champagne.
Exactly. And we are coming to you tonight from beautiful Palm Desert, California. But most importantly, we want to know where you guys are tuning in from, since this is a virtual event. I know last night we had people from Italy and Switzerland and all over the world, which was really exciting. So make sure you guys utilize that chat on the right side of your screen, and you can ask questions, make comments throughout tonight's event, and we will answer a couple of them, and let us know where you're tuning in from as well. And we will be showcasing artists throughout the evening, and we will post their exhibitor booth page link in the chat. but we want to make sure you guys open it in a new tab so you can continue listening to us while browsing their beautiful pieces.
And there's a guest book on each exhibitor's page. If you like the work, give them a little kudos. Love the work. I'd like to talk to you about it, something like that. You can just fill in whatever you'd like. You can set up an appointment with them if you want. They love the comments, and I encourage you to do that. And when you buy from the Redwood Marketplace, there's free freight in the United States.
So sit back, relax, grab a drink or a cocktail of choice, and enjoy the next hour or so.
So let's start off with our first talk, the future of art fairs. Hannah, you're going to do a little introduction here.
Yeah, so here's the phrase that everyone's been thinking of saying. Can't wait. You name it, and it's included in the phrase. From school openings to movie theaters, from museums to amusement parks, travel, vacation, restaurants, and parties. What can we expect and when? And also, what about conferences, conventions, and our personal favorite art fairs? Where are we, and what can we expect in the future?
So I want to introduce David Audrain, Executive Director of CISO. CISO is, many of you have heard me talk about CISO before, the Society of Independent Show Organizers. Redwood Art Group is a member. And Sylvia Harrison, Director of Sales, San Diego Convention Center, where we do one of our shows. Hi, Sylvia.
Welcome.
David.
Nice to see you.
So we're going to have an open discussion here. Sylvia, let's start with this past year. I remember seeing the Javits Center in New York City, full of hospital beds, first time ever, waiting for COVID patients at the height of this pandemic, right? And that was probably like April, May, June, last year. What's been going on at the San Diego Convention Center?
Sure. So in San Diego, as you know, like everyone else, we were closed for events a year ago, March of 2020. But maybe a week or two into it, we got called on to turn our center into a homeless shelter to home is what we called it. And that started up in April. And so we kind of teased that we've had the world's longest running event because they were with us 24/7 through the end of this March of 21 was when we were all relocated to other shelters. And during that time, we housed up to 1,450 from our homeless community. And we had lots of like there's medical services, health services, transitional services. Their goal was to get them off of the streets and back into other homes. So anyway, so that was very successful. It, helped us a little bit. We didn't have a lot of our own staff working it, but we still had enough, and it helped us, I guess, keep the lights on, if you will. And then they moved out at the end of March, and then the government came to us, and now we're being used as a emergency intake shelter for some of the migrant children that I'm sure everyone's heard on in the news.
Right.
So, and that is going through July. And then we're excited that we're going to be able to open up for events again in August. Here in California, we've had pretty strict restrictions compared to some of the other states out there. So we were very pleased a few weeks ago when our governor started to relax some of the restrictions, and actually events are able to start up again in June. But since we have visitors right now at our center through July, and really all of our other events and conventions had previously canceled. But starting in August, we have a full slate of trade shows, consumer shows, private conferences. So we're excited to start, doing what we do best, hosting events here in San Diego.
Well, a couple things. I just kind of wanted to paint the picture because let the audience know what has been going on with convention centers. You did a good job at that, so thank you. Yeah. And, I think it's commendable that these convention centers, and their large buildings can step up and really help out in times like this in the pandemic. I mean, that's a great kudos for our industry, right? It's really a good thing. So David, What are you hearing out there? Are organizers booking for space for this summer and fall?
Most definitely they are. My own company, I have 6 events scheduled June, July, and August. And as you know, we held our first conference, our CISO CEO Summit, just last week in Florida with 200 C-level execs in attendance. And it was extremely gratifying to get back together in person and see everybody from head to toe and not just shoulders up on these little boxes. The group was extremely pleased about it. Our own shows we've got scheduled in the summer, we're getting very positive responses. We have a variety of shows from the East Coast to Las Vegas, small and large, and universally almost all of them are pretty positive responses. And in fact, industry research right now shows every month the percentage of exhibitors and attendees that have said they're ready to go back to shows has continued to increase. And the latest research that Freeman put out just recently showed that by the winter, by the fall, end of the year, the 90+% of exhibitors and attendees say they expect to be back visiting or participating in shows.
That's excellent.
That's incredible.
David has one of the best named shows in the world.
What is it?
It's Super Zoo, right?
I wish it was mine. We just happen to service it. We run the operations for the World Pet Association, but it is a very fun show. If like me, you're into cats and other animals, it's lots of fuzzy things. I've run a lot of shows, you know, Eric. One of the other shows that's probably the most fun I've ever done was the SEMA show, which is the automotive aftermarket. Everything you can do to a car but don't need to. And it's that I ran for many years, and that was definitely the most fun show I ever did. But we run the operations for Super Zoo for the association, and they are looking extremely positive about their August show in Las Vegas. They fill the Mandalay Bay Convention Center, and we're ready to run it 100% in August.
Yeah, I love the name of that show. I mean, it's just so funny. And I've been to SEMA, Specialty Equipment Manufacturers Association. Right?
Market Association, but yes, Specialty Equipment Market Association. Yeah. As I say, they represent all of the aftermarket, everybody that makes stuff for car. If you're a car guy, if you're a gearhead, it's everything you can do to your car but don't need to.
Right, right.
So David, what's going on with CISO at the government level?
Well, we for the last year plus now, since last March, we've been actively advocating on behalf of the industry, both globally, but also most importantly here in the US. We joined with Freeman and many of the groups representing the various parts of the industry, from the venues to the destinations to the service contractors, as part of the Go Live Together initiative last spring. We have since formed a permanent advocacy coalition called the Exhibitions and Conferences Alliance. We've hired a full-time head of government affairs to run that, the advocacy work. We've had lobbyists on retainer since last spring. We've had marketing communications folks working, sharing information, making sure that the politicians, both on a federal level and on a state level in the key states, understand the economic value of our industry, not just to the cities that we deliver events in, but most importantly to the businesses, the majority of which are small businesses that use trade shows to generate, in many cases, the vast majority of their revenues every year.
Yeah, it's been tough for everybody, that's for sure. What are you hearing about international travel for attendees and exhibitors? Do you think that'll take a little longer to get the international?
It's still somewhat up in the air. I also serve on the board of the U.S. Travel Association and representing our industry, and they are working obviously with all the airlines and hotel chains with the government on trying to set workable guidelines to get in. Again, our conference last week, normally we would have had a third of our attendees from overseas, our CEOs from outside the U.S. Out of the 100 plus we would have normally had, we had 7. And they were the 7 that tried hard enough to find a way to get in legally, and they did get permission to come in, but it was a lot of work for them from the UK, from Germany, from Canada, Mexico even. And what the US travel is advocating for is, in particular, is to make sure that people don't have to quarantine to come in. that if they've been vaccinated, if they have been tested, there is no need for them to quarantine. And that the experts agree with, the medical experts agree with. So that's the position that we as an industry are supporting and pushing forward very much for. We're hopeful. There is talk right now with the UK about building an air bridge between the UK and the US, because obviously the vaccination rates here and the vaccination rates in the UK are higher than the rest of the world for the most part. And so there's a lot more confidence. But even the French president talked recently this last week about wanting to build a bridge this summer as well. So we're hopeful that we will see access coming in from the UK before the summer. And we're hopeful that during the summer, we'll start to see Europe, mainland Europe, accessible as well.
Yeah, it's important to us because our New York shows and our Miami events we get a lot of international travel. It wouldn't be a huge difference, but it would be noticeable, I think, because South America and Europe, we get a lot of people visiting Art Basel and Scope and Red Dot and our show Spectrum, and so we're looking forward to inviting them back in December. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I feel pretty confident that we'll see. Your December event is probably well timed.
Yeah,
I think so too.
Yeah.
Things keep changing daily, weekly, monthly, so everything keeps loosening up. So hopefully by December, we'll be able to welcome all those international visitors.
And hopefully they're all vaccinated.
Right.
But you will probably continue to wear masks, right?
I think we're going to see that flexibility start to change. I mean, there's already talk about a lot of cities and states are now removing the mandates on masks, certainly outdoors, and they're starting to even remove them. If you have a group of people that have all been vaccinated, the experts have said the risk is minimal at best, that they need to even wear masks inside. So I think, yes, we'll see a lot. I mean, a lot of venues still require masks inside. A lot of hotels still require masks inside in any public areas. And that will obviously continue for some months. The question is, once we get to that point that the federal government is saying that by June, pretty much anybody that wants a vaccine should have been able to have one here in the US. So at that point, is there the same need? And that's what we'll start to see. But that will certainly be changing over the next months. But I certainly think that by the fall, all things being equal, I think we'll have a lot more flexibility. What we saw in China, I think, is the best example. China started last summer when they were able to drive the infection rate down to almost zero. They started running big shows last July. And they've been running shows almost constantly since then. And in fact, their domestic business in China is literally at the sort of 80, 90, 100% of 2019 numbers in the trade show business, with major million square foot shows happening just these last weeks. And what happened is that because the infection rate is so low, yes, people are still wearing masks, but they're not requiring them. They're not requiring the distancing because the infection rate is almost negligible. And when you get to that point, then the risk is very, very small. And people immediately, their participation in shows really came back almost instantly.
That's good news.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Sylvia, San Diego is such a, tourist location. So are you seeing more travelers come through?
Yes, especially on the weekends, our hotels are starting to get over 80% occupancy. When I live down in the downtown area, so when I'm out and about, all the restaurants are super crowded. All of the, our touristy areas, everyone's coming. I think people just after over a year, being cooped up in their homes, they're wanting to go out and travel and they feel safe. Yes, I still see people wear masks outside, some do, some don't, but everyone's pretty much follows the rules. I notice and wear them, in the establishments that, is required. And yes, and we're also gearing up for when our trade show business comes back, that a lot of people will be traveling with their families and bringing their families with them because, again, they want to get out of the house. They maybe haven't had vacations in over a year, so they might do business and also, tack on a vacation to that as well. So
That's a good
we're
point.
optimistic.
Yeah, that's a good point. I bet people do that. I can't wait to get out and show.
I know.
Well, thanks you guys. David, it's always a pleasure to talk to you, and you're very insightful, and I appreciate all the work you do for our industry.
I'm
And
very happy to
Sylvia-
be here. We wish you the very best of luck with your events in the fall.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
And Sylvia, we'll see you in October.
Yeah.
We will, yes. Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Thank you, guys.
So let's do a few artist highlights.
Absolutely. So
Laura? Yeah, go ahead.
let's start off with Linda Roberts photography. Linda Roberts is a landscape and nature fine art photographer. Her photographs are a reflection of her strong love of nature, and Linda holds a deep appreciation for the endless cycle of natural life. Linda is constantly challenging herself to learning new techniques and experimenting with different ways to bring the emotion of each piece forward. She believes photographs are more than just an image. They are moods, feelings, and breath.
Yeah, she should really be photographing for National Geographic. I've been to National Geographic actually has their own galleries now, and her photographs are incredible. I love the piece called The Guardians. It's got a lot of depth, and I think those are the pools of the cauldrons in Yellowstone National Park. Really great piece there. And Waiting to Exhale, she's smart enough to put a boat in there where it shows some signs of human life, so you can actually kind of think about, oh, I should go get in that boat and row myself away. They're really good pieces. Her prices are really amazing for the quality of her work. I would highly suggest that everybody go check out her guest page, and if you want to get in touch with her, her contact information is there.
And now let's go over to Shalane Grant. Shalane creates artwork at Wall Candy Art Studio in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. She is a lifelong artist and enjoys expressing herself through creativity. Shalane wants to bring awareness to mental health concerns and impacting society by evoking emotion and conversation through her vibrant artwork.
Brightly colored pieces, very bright, kind of like her personality. I've met Shalane, had dinner with her before. She paints on plexiglass on both the front and the back sometimes. So if you think about the way she's creating the piece, she's painting it from behind. So she's got to think what's going to be the first thing you see is what she's putting down, not the last thing that you see she's putting down. So it's painting it backwards. There's a lot of talent behind her work. I know that she started really get involved with when her kids were at school by doing fundraisers and things and getting the kids involved and raising money for the schools, and a very worthy cause there. A lot of her pieces are only $1,000. So you're getting a good sized piece of work for very little money. Those in the industry, designers and dealers, you should pick up on that, because she can paint quickly and produce a lot of work if you can sell it. So I would highly advise you to take a look at Shalane's work. It brings a lot of color and joy into people's lives and into a room.
And up next we have Elena Dobrovolskaya. Elena
Hey, that was really good.
Thank you. Elena is a New York City-based Russian artist working in contemporary realism using oil and pastel. She has exhibited in the United States and Europe, including New York City, London, Paris, Lisbon, Venice, Rome, and Milan. Her oil portraits are vibrant, colorful, and very feminine, delicate, and romantic.
Yeah, her work, it's kind of like two different works going on here, but the top one's Laura with the two on the right, Finding Myself and Becoming a Woman. I love those pieces. There's a really well-known artist named Julian Opie who paints these figurative type works. And actually, it looks a little bit like that, a little bit of Tom Wesselman in there, but it's got a little more character. I really like those top two pieces on the right there. They're simple, but very well done. And I encourage you to look at Elena's page and sign her guest book if you like any of the pieces. I know that she had received a personal invitation lately from the president and founder of the Florence Biennial, Pascal Salona, to participate in the biennial in October of 2021. So, you know, they're seeing her talent and they're going to bring it to Florence, Italy. So that's awesome.
Her work is fantastic. And next up, let's look at Jason Fate's work. Jason is a Chicago-based artist specializing in mixed media collage. He has been a commission artist in Chicago for over 20 years and is looking for new opportunities and collectors. He is also currently working on an art installation in a new nightclub in Chicago, which I know he's very excited about. So if you are in the Chicago area, make sure to keep your eye out for that.
Yeah, so Jason's work is a really good example of not everything translates perfectly through a computer, because they're collages. You really have to see them in person. I mean, I'm sure the color will pop. It's a completely different thing when you're seeing his work live. But if you're an architect or designer out there looking for collage work, I would certainly hit Jason up because he does a lot of commission work. You can pick your own theme, and that piece on the right, the City of the Century, is really about New York. And when you get in there, you'll see things like Mayor Daley and all kinds of historical things about the city of New York. So make sure if you're interested in his work, you sign his guest book. And those, again, architects, designers, art dealers out there, think about, you know, getting in touch with Jason and having him do commission work for any of your clients.
And next up, we have Carol Tippett Woolworth. Carol earned her art degree from UCSB and has spent the last 4 years in Santa Fe, New Mexico. She lived on the East Coast for many years in cities like New York and in Connecticut and Delaware, where she continued to study art, teach painting privately at the Delaware College of Art and Design. And she has led groups to the south of France, and her work has been shown in galleries throughout the Mid-Atlantic and Santa Fe. She also paints based on her love of the Southwest, which you can definitely see throughout her pieces.
Yeah, so UCSB is the University of California, Santa Barbara. Good friend of mine went there. His dorm was right on the ocean. We used to go to the top of his building and hit golf balls into the ocean, which I do feel bad about now, because we shouldn't have been doing it. I love UCSB. I can see how her work would fit very well in Santa Fe. The top three pieces we're looking at right now, to me, they look like warriors. She called them goddesses, the god and goddesses. And it's really like a three-piece suite. Those are big pieces, fantastic use of color. You can see they have like helmets on or a hat, but it's kind of the outfit they would wear to go to war in, you know, pre-Columbian looking figures, each wearing a distinctive headdress. The pieces at the bottom of her booth, those pieces there, soft, subtle. My wife Kelly sent them to me when Carol was applying, and she said, "What do you think of these pieces?" I fell in love with them immediately. I mean, the use of color, the orange, the floor in the piece, browsing the galleries at MoMA. I mean, it looks like you're at MoMA, but there's a little, it's soft and subtle there. You know, you could put yourself in the place of these people. So really good work. I encourage you to take a look at her page and sign her guest book. So from now, I think we're going to go to our next talk, Avenues for Art Sales.
And it has been 1 year and counting since the pandemic has taken a toll on businesses all around the world. The art industry has been on somewhat of a hold, galleries being closed, museums closed, and art fairs canceled. But virtual art events have been booming, and so have art sales for artists and galleries that have pursued new avenues. So what has it taken to sell during the past year, and what new techniques have we learned that are keepers?
Gatsby, you're on mute. So are you, Kate. There we go.
I just got on. I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question. If you could just repeat that.
It wasn't one. We were just doing an introduction.
Good. Hi, guys.
Hi, Jeff.
Hello.
So I'd like to introduce Jeff Jaffe. Wave, there you go. The owner of Pop International Gallery in New York City. Kate Taylor. She's coming to us from her small cottage north of Toronto. And Gatsby, an artist working out of Tampa, Florida, that I've been working with a little bit too over the last year and a half, 2 years. Paints some great contemporary art. So we're going to talk about kind of avenues of art sales, what's been happening during the pandemic, you know, how do you keep your sales alive, that type of thing. So Jeff, let's start with you. Your gallery is in New York City. It's still open and operating. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Good job. How did you do it?
Well, you know, I don't think there was a formula that I could outline in brisk terms. I think it was about figuring things out as we sort of got hit by this pandemic, and then making decisions that were based solely on survival, frankly. How are we going to get through this? How am I going to keep the people who work for me employed? How am I going to support the artists that we represent? What is it that we do that we've done for the last 25 years that we now have to sort of shape? You know, it was a whole sort of process of thinking through what we were going to do. And it obviously turned out, frankly, that Zoom and electronics and the computer world and all of the sort of virtual stuff that people started to talk about began to fall into place. And again, I'm fortunate, our gallery is fortunate in that we've got 25 years of clients and relationships. Many of our artists have been with us from the day we opened 25 years ago at Pop International. And so the idea was to switch the notion of expecting people to just walk in the gallery every day and our reaching out to them in ways that we might not have done before. Yeah, we email people, you know, we do all that kind of stuff, but we realized very quickly that texting people, phoning people, emailing people, having virtual events, getting artists to make videos that we could place around and show, and social media and all of that clicked into place. And we've had some marvelous, marvelous experiences, certainly using Zoom and other electronic virtual avenues.
Yeah, your story isn't a lot different than ours. We have here at Redwood Art Group, we have 15 people, and we weren't allowed to do shows. We haven't done a show since December of 2019. And the first thing I thought to myself was, oh my God, how am I going to support everybody? You know, what are you going to do? And you have to make some very, very difficult decisions. You've got to hang on to your cash. You've got to, hopefully get everybody in unemployment and, kind of work through things. And then you got to start thinking about your community. That's like us today doing RAVE, trying to keep everybody together and try to make some sales for them. So very similar stories.
I made a conscious decision on whatever level I could not to let anybody go if it was possible for me to do that. And all the government support, the payroll protection programs and so on and so forth. So we were fortunate, amongst other things that I was able to do, to keep all of the sales team intact, which was pretty wonderful. And I'm grateful and humbled by that, frankly.
Yeah,
and
good
that
job.
they wanted to stay. That's a whole other thing.
And Kate, it's been an amazing year. And I know you mentioned that you used to do 20 shows. So what are some new avenues that you've done in the past year to continue selling?
Yeah, it's been definitely having to change the way I do business. Because I mean, typically, with 20 shows a year, you constantly you're also always rebuilding your database. And like Jeff was saying, I think that personal connection and really reaching out to previous collectors is really critical. And, I've been pretty religious about building that database and building those relationships for years, and they really came to fruition for me. I think that what kind of surprised me at the beginning of the pandemic is I expected people to kind of pull in and not buy, but in actual fact, I had people wanting big pieces. And so I really followed up on every single commission, every single email. I did so many video calls so people could, from around the world, they could see the paintings, these tiny little paintings, and they spent like an hour with you. But, I think a lot of it was about every single one making this personal connection. And so I've been really busy, and I actually was probably a bit overly optimistic, but I kept my revenue target this year. That was the same as last year, which was pretty aggressive, because I figure, it's about not getting caught up in all the things that are going bad, but keeping positive with all the things that are going well, and kind of trying to provide that joy, I guess, to your clients.
Yeah, and your work definitely brings joy in a lot of people. So I'm sure a lot of your collectors needed that, especially in the last year.
Well, they needed that. I also, as you know, I have a 0 risk commission policy. So basically, if you don't totally love it, you don't have to take it. And so I really pushed that, because that meant that people could be involved in something really fun and really creative and really positive, but without the risk of it, and having to spend money on something they didn't love. And so in my experience, that always works really well.
Very good.
Very good.
Could I
So
just jump in and say one quick thing?
Yeah.
One of the other things that was quite remarkable, and certainly New York City was indicative of, we chatted about this the other day, was how many people were leaving the city and going into their second homes or buying homes out of the city. And consequently, there were lots of walls. People were, sorry, there's a big motorcycle going out outside. People have walls, and people were sitting around during the pandemic going, I need to put a piece of art on that wall, or,
Yeah.
and
Or I need something that's in the back of my Zoom call, my Zoom meetings.
Yeah, exactly.
Zoom
I did a lot of weird pieces that people put inside their closets, because that was the only place that they could have a quiet Zoom call. So it's like, oh, so my art's in a closet. I guess I'll be happy.
That's so funny. Jeff, I don't know if you saw it today, but you remember David DeSanctis, and he did that posthumous pieces with Basquiat.
Yeah, yes.
They sold it for 4 pieces sold today, a set for over 600 grand.
Yes, I know. I've actually just recently been involved in a whole series of Basquiat sales, and they're all in that range.
Yeah, but those it was signed by his dad. You remember those 4 pieces? So I was the one that introduced Adam Carr through my friend Fred Carr to David. And they created DeSanctis Carr Fine Art. And they asked me, Eric, would you like a set? And they charged me this very low price. It was $6,000. And this
that was the wholesale price.
Oh my God, I should have bought it.
Well, I can tell you, and I'll share this humbly, my set helped put my daughter through college.
Yeah, I bet.
That's cool.
So let's go on to Gatsby, because Gatsby, you did some very creative things, which I take my hat off to you. Tell us about the Airbnb staging and making some art sales through that.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. So I'm in Florida, and a lot of people have been traveling to Florida during the pandemic because, they've been a lot more open than other states. And I'd placed my work in several high-end, I wouldn't call them mansions, but really large homes that were Airbnbs. And I knew the owner, and they'd sat there for about 6 months and nothing happened. And I'd really never spent any time with them. And I spent a few hours with them. And Eric, I think you're the one that taught me actually that people buy the artist and the story as much as they buy the art. And after spending a few hours with him, he actually sold 2 pieces today. I mean, he's been consistently selling between 2 and 4 pieces a week out of his Airbnbs for me. And during the pandemic, I've really, that relationship helped me realize that I should focus on expanding my relationships with my other collectors and turning them into advocates and almost brokers as well, because they're passionate about the work and buy into the whole story and know what my work's about. So they tell the story passionately when people come over anyway. And that's helped my sales go up dramatically, even during the pandemic when we weren't able to have live events and fairs.
Excellent. That's a great story. It is about the relationship, and it's about the stories that people, when a collector buys a new piece of work and they put it up on their wall, and then they have friends over for dinner and they're like, oh, you got a new painting there, right? They don't talk about, oh, it's mixed media on camp. They talk about the whole experience, about meeting the artist or buying the painting or why they, it's all about that. So the stories are what's key.
I think it's also about being bold. I mean, I think that this is an opportunity where, you can do things that are outside of the norm because, even if it screws up, there you can always kind of put it down to, well, the COVID. And so things are different. But I think that it's a matter of not wallowing in what's happening, but looking at the opportunities that are out there. And I think like Gatsby is doing, it's kind of like he saw a need and he went after it. He didn't think about whether or not it was going to work or not. Like you just try it and it worked, which is amazing. And if it didn't work, then you've got nothing to lose.
Right.
Correct. And there's plenty of stories we're not telling that didn't work. So.
Well, I share those on my Instagram.
You do that.
But I think the other thing that I really did too is I really missed people because I'm an extrovert. And that was probably the hardest thing for me is my husband was so happy to be at home all the time and it was driving me crazy. So I started doing these interviews called Talking to Artists, which I'm on like episode almost 50 now, where I would just reach out to artists that I like and we'd have a chat about it. And from that, I had a lot of people say, well, it's great that you're introducing us to other artists, but we now want to know what you're doing. So I started doing chats about as I was working in the studio so they could see what I'm doing and see how I'm doing. And I would talk about commissions or my color choices or whatever. But, I find making that personal connection has been so critical.
Absolutely. And kind of showing people the process of your work, I think, makes them fall in love with it a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
That's been
and then they can talk about it.
If I may add something to that, one of the things about the way we work at the Pop Gallery is developing a relationship between the artist and the collector, not the artist and me per se, because that's abundantly clear and obvious. But the relationships that we're able to foster between collectors and artists over the years has been something really spectacular. But with COVID, having been locked up and making art because that's all they could do, and then having these lovely electronic virtual events, they became much more sort of intimate. People could talk to each other and they were, oh, when I was in the gallery a few years, it was amazing. It's been an amazing time on that level.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's really cool.
And speaking of virtual events, Jeff, you did a virtual event with Ron English, right?
I did. We had been trying to do something for quite some time, and we had a chat about it, and he decided to do a project for Pop that he'd never really done before. And so we had some basis to sort of really go out to our collectors and say, we have a lovely thing to do with Ron. But what we also did was we used social media significantly before we did our Zoom event. Instagram Live was a wonderful thing. I think we might have had 3,000 people just on our Instagram Live moment. And that sort of opened up a whole bunch of stuff. And then the RSVP to the Zoom event, it was by invite only and by RSVP only. It was just remarkable. And Ron was lovely and was, sitting in front of the art in the studio and being really chatty and deeply sort of sincere about what he does. It was really special.
That's awesome. So Kate, you have 14 galleries in the US and Canada, which says a lot about your work itself. Did you do anything to help to assist them during the past year to keep things moving?
Oh, absolutely. And some of those galleries actually are art consultants. And I do have one in England as well. But I think that what I did is I always really look at the relationships with the gallery as a real partnership. So one of the things I did struggle with was whether or not to put pricing on my website or not, because I didn't want to get in a situation where I was undercutting my galleries. And some of the galleries in the US have prices that are more expensive than the Canadian galleries. So I only have very small pieces on sale for my website. But I also really made sure the pieces that were on my website, I directed them to the galleries where they were selling, but I also actually encouraged them to do social media. So for example, I think with all of the galleries, I invited them on to Talking to Artists, and they had actually not done a live interview before because it's kind of not scripted. And from that, they started doing their own and interviewing artists. And so I think that's part of it. Probably the biggest thing I did though, is I reached out to each gallery and I kind of said, okay, so instead of me just bringing a bunch of stuff in and you can tell me what you like, tell me what you need. Like, what colors are you seeing? What trends are you seeing? What are you finding your clients are asking for? What are your designer clients asking for? And then I will paint to that palette. And so I think that helped them have something that was going to be just a faster, easier sell for them.
People sell what they like.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that I know if I do turquoises and blues, they'll sell. I love to do oranges and pinks, and they're a harder sell, right? Because not everyone's really into that, especially in Canada. But most of our galleries were closed pretty much for the year. So the US has been much more open, which for me has been a godsend because it's allowed me to actually continue to sell through the galleries because it's been really tough in Canada.
Yeah, and Gatsby, you work a lot in social media as well. I know you do a lot of DMing and outreach and kind of putting yourself out there.
Yeah, correct. So I not only DM people, I've also, during COVID, I actually saw a massive uptick in what people were willing to spend online as well. You know, I've advertised every post I've ever done on Instagram. So I've definitely honed in on the audience that responds the most to my work compared to where I was 3 years ago when I started advertising. But I've also seen people a lot more willing to make purchases from an artist that they hadn't heard of before, to where before the pandemic, I mean, sometimes I'd go a month or 5 weeks without selling anything myself on social media. And now to where I'm selling, you know, between 3 and 5 originals a week on social media just through the Instagram posts.
That's great.
Yeah, it's a powerful tool, which is really incredible for artists.
It is.
And that's another whole learning curve, right? Learning how to do it and how to be
Mhm.
efficient with your time to do social media and kind of get something back from it that's going to be beneficial to your clients.
Or you hire Hannah.
Yeah, or you hire me.
You hire
I
some-
wish.
We were able.
I'm a control monger. I can't do that.
We were also very much able to, our artists who are on social media, who would do their own sort of marketing, all that, they referred clients right back to us. Collectors would be, hey, I just reached out to so-and-so on, in fact, yesterday we had a lovely little sale that happened based entirely on an artist doing something on social media. Our collector reached out to him and he referred them back to us. And so this sort of symbiotic, wonderful thing has occurred and continues to occur.
And I think that's really important to managing your galleries. I mean, it's like a marriage. There has to be trust there. And certainly if I have a sale that goes through a gallery, I tag them and I post on Instagram. If I'm doing a piece for a gallery, I'll tag them. And I always direct clients back. Like I had, one of the things I am finding though is sometimes clients will go to the gallery and they come to you, and at time it's hard sometimes to figure out that they actually were the gallery's client.
Sure.
So, but I always follow up afterwards and give them the commission that's due, because I think they do an awful lot for me that they don't specifically get paid for. So it has to be fair.
Yeah, that's great.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks everybody. I mean, for taking your time and sharing these stories with our audience. We really appreciate it, Kate, Jeff, and Gatsby. And we're going to talk about Gatsby in a minute, aren't we?
Mm-hmm.
Give me a call,
All right.
Gatsby.
Thanks. It was great to meet you guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
So let's do a couple more rave showcases.
All right.
And I say we start.
Oh,
off-
wait. Laura, you're
Hi.
raising your hand. What?
I'm just so impressed, and I'm so happy about everybody like giving us shout outs and sharing their own experiences in the YouTube chat. We appreciate it so much. And we've got Linda Roberts from Montana, David Clendenin from Florida, Stephen Robeck from Santa Fe, our Galia Levinska from Prague, and Gail Feed from Simi Valley, California, and Duke Windsor as well. So anyway,
Awesome.
Awesome.
appreciate it, guys.
And let's dive into it. Let's do some more rave showcases. So we're going to start off with Gatsby, since we just spoke to him. And Gatsby is a conceptual based artist out of Tampa, Florida, whose work focuses on causes that are extremely important to him. His pieces cover topics ranging from animal welfare, conservation, addiction, racial injustices, and more. And although he has only been a professional artist for 4 years, his work has been highlighted at the Grammys, American Music Awards, Billboard Music Awards, Fashion Week, Miss America, as well as in top galleries in Los Angeles, New York, and Miami. And he recently just celebrated his birthday. So happy birthday to him.
So we just spoke to Gatsby. So now you can put a work to his face. Get what I did there? Usually it's a face to work. His work really, really sells well. Contemporary pop work. Stop there, Laura. So the piece DARE, for instance, which stands for Drug Abuse Resistance Education. He changes it to drugs are really expensive, which is obviously, and they both should prohibit you from taking drugs. But there's a lot of satirical expressions in his work. But he's really captured contemporary and pop painting techniques very, very well. He uses characters that are popular to all of us, like Tony the Tiger or Tom and Jerry. And he puts a new spin on everything. And I think that's what people are collecting about him is his, kind of satire and his comedy and his reflection of the political things that are happening in the world and all of that, the media. So check out his page and give him a call if you're interested in some of the work.
Yeah, and like he said, he does a lot of commission work. So if you're interested for something a little more, geared towards your style, definitely reach out to him. And next up, we have Rachel Tribble. And Rachel is an American contemporary artist who paints in watercolors and oil painting. Her work is recognized for its meditative qualities and serene use of color. Originally from New York City, she studied fine art and later jewelry design, but ended up leaving her career in the fashion and jewelry industry to pursue her art. She introduced her multimedia installation and performance work to the alternative venues of rock nightclubs during the rise of the EDM movement.
What's EDM?
Electronic dance music.
You go to those raves, right?
Perfect in line for our rave event tonight.
You can tell that she used to be involved in jewelry because of the intricate detail in her work. The light and the tree pieces are heavily detailed, and it's got a little bit of Art Deco feel to it. There was a popular artist years ago called Erte, who, in fact, Art Deco is, what you see when you go to South Beach and you walk down Ocean Avenue. All those hotels are Art Deco. Her work has also been seen in the Epcot International Flower and Garden Festival at Disney World. And I could see her work, hanging in doctor's offices to yoga studios. It's got a lot of meditative qualities to it. Well done. Go to Rachel's page if you're interested and send her a note.
And next up, we have Marcela Levinska-Boreka, also known as Marilyn Fine Art. Marcela is an artist living in Prague in the Czech Republic and has been painting professionally for over 30 years. She is focused on modern realism and abstract art. She exhibited her work in Paris, Berlin, Cairo, and Prague, and is inspired by her journeys to France, Turkey, Syria, Jordan, Israel, Egypt, and Greece.
We had the pleasure of speaking to Marcela during our last rave event, and her personality is quite bubbly. She loves life, and you can tell that by looking at her work. Her colors are bright and vibrant, and the paintings are full of life. Look at the piece Temple. You can see how it relates to her journeys around Europe and her curiosity for ancient civilizations. There's objects in there and different styles from country to country, whether it be France to Turkey. I've been to Turkey, and it's pretty interesting country. She takes her travels to incorporate them in her abstract work, and you can see it in many of her pieces here. Hannah, you mentioned to me that you like the piece Red Paradiso.
That one's my favorite.
Yeah, right there at the bottom. So hit Marcela up if you're interested in some of her work. Her prices are very reasonable. Sign the guest book or send her an email.
And next up, we have Linnell Nellison. Linnell draws her inspiration from her vivid dreams that come to her during the night. We spoke to her during our last rave event, and she let us know that when she sees an image, she wakes up and starts painting and makes sure to go into the kitchen so she doesn't wake up her husband. And She paints landscapes and still life and uses vibrant colors to really make her pieces pop.
Yeah, I was looking at her work earlier, and the first two pieces you see on her booth page, the one on the left here and the one in the middle, lavender fields in a peaceful place. You can see that one of them came to her in a dream, lavender fields. And a peaceful place is a super well done painting with much more detail. So it's kind of like two different personalities. She's got this whole colorful side that's kind of dreamy and meditative, and the lavender fields with it looks like at the same time. And then she's got a very good skill set as an artist to be able to paint a peaceful place. I mean, that is an outstanding painting. They both are, but they're two different styles. What did she say about it? Yeah, I covered that. But you can, so Linnell said that lavender fields is the interplay of the reflected light of a sunrise in a field of lavender contrasted with shadows of the mountainsides. Sunrise brings promise of the sweet smell of lavender and clean morning dew. So you can tell that she woke up with that and started painting it. Good job. So tap into her booth page and contact her if you're interested in any of her pieces.
And up next, we'll jump over to Serrano Gallery. Serrano Gallery and Abedin Fine Art are under one booth page, and Serrano Gallery is located in Houston, Texas, and specializes in contemporary abstract figurative art and is known for representing the work of Mexican masters like Renato Rojas. Abedin Fine Art explores geometric abstraction with an emphasis on color study. And Fariba's concept of work is tender and appealing in its appreciation of nature and science.
So let's start by looking at Serrano Gallery. These are some really well-known Mexican artists, and they have achieved prices in this six-figure range. So research is needed, I mean, these are artists that are serious artists. And Didier Mays, as you scroll down, is an up-and-coming artist, and I encourage you to look at his work too, because it starts at around $3,000 or $3,600, kind of following in the footsteps of these ones that have been established for many years. All of the work on this page is outstanding, and if you're a designer or architect or somebody out there looking for, and you're placing things in somebody's new home in the Hamptons, or these are the pieces to look at on during this rave event. These are really well-known artists. And Abedin Fine Art, as we scroll down, Fariba has attended a few of our shows. I noticed her work because I was walking by it, and it's just super good quality work. She does paintings and then three-dimensional pieces, as you can see on the far right. The quality of the work is, on a scale of 1 to 10, it's a 10. And it's precise and well executed. Her use of color is outstanding, and the geometry piece is, how big is that? The one on the left I know is a 40 by 40, the painting on canvas. And that's the same size that Andy Warhol used to do. Everything was 40 by 40. It's a perfectly sized piece to fit into any home. And that piece is $8,500. The piece on the far right is a bigger piece, a wall sculpture with her geometric figures. And that's, I think it was around 19,000. So these are great pieces for an installation for any architect, designer. And Fariba is a great artist. And I hope to see her at another one of our events soon.
Yeah. And next up, we're going to hop over to Risk Rock Studio. Multi-talented fine artist, sculptor, and graffiti pioneer Kelly Risk Graval has been synonymous with the Los Angeles art community for over 30 years. He rose to prominence as the originator of bright, colorful West Coast graffiti style. He pioneered hitting up the heavens, which meant putting his graffiti as high as possible, scaling up and writing on freeway signs and overpasses. Risk has solidified his place in the history books as a world-renowned graffiti legend and contemporary artist. Risk will also be joining us tomorrow for our New York Stories Art Talk, so be sure to be there because I personally love listening to his stories, and he's got some really great ones.
So these are the new additions to his work, the Buddha series. You can see his signature butterflies on the lower pieces, and there's a lot of color to them. But the Buddha pieces that he's done here, there's some original work, and then there's some prints that you can get for around $1,200. And Risk has done murals everywhere, including this big one in San Diego, all over the world. He did a huge hospital that was closed in Canada at one time. I think it was one of the biggest murals ever. So he painted this old hospital that was closed, and it's really cool. You could Google it. But he paints layers upon layers upon layers. And you can see the graffiti work in a lot of these pieces too. But the butterflies, I think Linda told me that he has 4 daughters, and there's 4 butterflies in that diptych down there, 1 for each daughter. Nice, sweet story there.
I love the butterflies.
So
be sure to check out all of the artworks from today's artists and our RAVE exhibitors, from innovative galleries to today's top independent artist. Have a personal visit with them by arranging an appointment from their guest book.
And join us tomorrow at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern for our Collector Day. And it's the last day of RAVE New York.
Now stay with us as Vanguard Culture's Susana Pareto Swap interviews Francisco Morales, Gallery Director of the Front Art and Cultura. The Front has been giving exposure to art and artists working on the on-trend visual arts movement focused on diversity, immigration, and inclusion. Thank you.
Bye-bye, everybody.
See you tomorrow.
My name is Susana Pareto Swap, founder and executive director of Vanguard Culture, a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to advancing the creative industries. Today, it is my absolute pleasure to welcome to our art shop talk Francisco Morales. He is the gallery director at the Front Arte en Cultura, which is a binational art gallery in the border region. And before we bring him on, I'd love to read you his bio. He's a very interesting individual, and I'm really excited to interview him. So Pablo Francisco Morales is originally from Mexico City, currently living and working in San Diego, California. Francisco is a composer and multimedia artist. He creates music, sound, and multimedia installations, interventions, and performances. His work has been presented throughout the world, specifically across Mexico, the United States, Europe, and South America. Francisco is the current gallery director at the Front Arte en Cultura binational art gallery in the border region of San Isidro, United States, and Tijuana, Mexico, in Baja California, where he curates art exhibitions, workshops, and performances focused on the transnational artistic life of the region, but keeping an eye on the international art scene as well. He is also an educator leading the art youth training program at the gallery. It's my absolute pleasure to welcome Francisco. Welcome.
Hello, Susana. Hello, everybody. Thank you for the invite, and thank you for your interest in this work that we do.
Yeah, thank you. So for those of you that don't know this San Diego, Tijuana kind of region, I'd love to give everybody just a little bit of an idea about what the art scene looks like in living in this binational space. Tell us a little bit about the art scene in Tijuana and how it is connected to the San Diego community.
Yes. So as you mentioned, we are right in the border of these two countries. However, the border is not only a separation between Mexico and the USA. It is also where the whole Latin American continent crashes, collides, blends with North America. So there is centuries of tradition, centuries of communities, indigenous communities colliding with this North America that has also a background that comes from Europe. So, you know, that's what's laying really under the whole border situation.
Mhm.
As an arts organization, we deal with artists from both sides of the border, which means artists from Central America, from South America, from Mexico, from Canada, from the United States. And San Isidro becomes a bridge. Even though sometimes these two cultures collide, also there's a lot of times in which they blend. And it is impossible sometimes to identify if an artist is from Tijuana living in San Diego or from San Diego living in Tijuana. So this is a space where also a lot of USA artists have their last stop in the USA before actually starting showing their work in Mexico. This is also a space where artists from Mexico have their first approach to a USA gallery before actually going into deeper into the country. San Isidro is right in the border of in the corner of Mexico and in USA. So there is also a corridor that a lot of musicians use when they are touring. They start in Seattle and come down all the way down to Los Angeles, San Diego, and then cross to Tijuana, some of them. Then they could go east to Tucson and vice versa. So this is an arts corridor and happens the same in Mexico. Artists show their work in Tijuana, they show their work in Monterrey, then they go down to the center of the country, Guadalajara, Morelia, Mexico, right? So there's a lot of things moving in this part of the world, a lot of people, a lot of artworks and ideas.
So how do you typically find your curators and your artists? I know that you bring in guest curators regularly. Are they from this region or how does that happen?
Yes, so the idea is to work with the community, and the community is it's a very big word. It could mean almost everybody, right? But we are focusing on the small groups. One of them could be, of course, the transborder community, which means artists and curators who can cross the border, who work in San Diego, who work in Tijuana, and feel confident about it, and know artists from both sides of the border, because that's another important thing. You have to be in both sides, one step here, one step there, to actually get a glimpse of the transnational and binational life. So that is very important.
Complicated for you in terms of like, what are the logistics of getting artwork across the border? Does it make it more challenging or is it?
Well, crossing the border, it's always a challenge. You know, it's always facing a federal agent that is trained to, you know, find drugs, find criminals. And sometimes they treat you as one, even though you're just crossing art. You know, they don't trust anybody. And that is difficult. Of course, artists who want to cross their work here, depending on the size, they have to do some paperwork sometimes. Some other times it's just, it's enough if we send them a letter, an invitation letter from the gallery, and they show that at the border, and then they can cross the artwork. It is difficult, yes, waiting times are big also, but just like everybody living in this region, we make it happen, right? We're used to it.
Yeah, we're incredibly resilient here along the border. So has the pandemic created more opportunities in this like virtual space? I mean, can you work now with curators that are just not right across the border, but maybe like, you know, in another country quite far away, like another Latin American country?
Yes, yes. And I was talking about this with Norma Iglesias Prieto. Yeah, so the pandemic brought other things that I assume they're going to stay, like online meetings, online workshops, and online just working generally. You're right. actually the next exhibition, we're going to work with a curator from Mexico City and 2 curators from San Diego. So that is something that we've never done before, and we never thought about it before. But now it seems possible. We've done it with Ingrid, and I have kind of a strategy now, and we're going to make it happen. And that is exciting, actually.
Yeah, I'm definitely really excited by how the world came together, and it just opened up this whole series of opportunities in terms of working with people that normally would have had to get on a plane, find a place to stay, all of that, the expenses attached to bringing like a guest curator from a different country, for example. So I do want to talk about the show that we're about to see, which is the Dia de la Mujer, as you know, translates to International Women's Day in English. Can you give us a little bit of sense, because this is a, Mexico, United States centric type of exhibition. Can you give us a sense of what Dia de la Mujer, how it's traditionally, celebrated in Mexico, or are there any, traditions that are attached to this that we should know about, like to give it a little bit of context?
Not really. I mean, and actually it's a very delicate subject now, because the commemoration, I wouldn't call it a celebration, the commemoration of International Women's Day is now seen as an opportunity to resist, to be resilient, to talk about all these issues affecting women and womanhood. So as an exhibition, it becomes an image of that resilience, of that even violence, that is being committed against women. And coming from Mexico, where there's a lot of women being killed with no response by the government whatsoever, the exhibition becomes an act of resistance and a protest even.
I think this is the first time in the last few years that women have felt empowered to have a voice and to finally push back against this en masse, so I'd love to talk about what we see in the exhibition. First, it's called Domestic Geographies, and the central theme is the home. So my understanding is that each artist submitted works that respond to the various roles that women play in the home and then attempt to reimagine them. So give us a little bit of an overview. Which ones are your favorite artists? Give us some examples that we're going to see in a minute.
Yes, exactly. So the theme of the exhibition is every year selected by the curator, the guest curator. In this case, Ingrid Hernandez. She's a photographer and curator from Tijuana. And she chose this title. She named the exhibition Domestic Geographies. And the exhibition is about how women have to reinvent themselves within the domestic sphere to survive, resist, at the same time work from home, and then have their families there and their kids, and do all these things that women do, also in the middle of the pandemic. The exhibition is not about the pandemic, but I think the pandemic highlighted the fact that so many different and difficult things happen at home, and we don't pay attention to them. So this exhibition is about that. And yes, artists submitted works that talk about these issues, talk about domestic violence, talk about traditions in the family, that talk about the body, sexuality, all these things that happen just to any of us, but more specifically to women and how they affect them. That's what the exhibition is about. We have a lot of photography. We have a lot of contemporary photography from the region. Some of them are from Tijuana, some of them are from Ensenada. And there is a very interesting photography scene in this part of the world. And it's very strong. The themes are very strong. They talk about violence. They talk about love and violence within your partner. They talk about religious violence, and so many very actually difficult themes to talk about in an everyday conversation. So if you come to see exhibition, you're going to see a lot of, I would say, hard to swallow pills, right? It's not a beautiful exhibition. It is difficult because there's so many difficult things happening in this part of the world. We have also works that talk about the domestic work, you know, all the work that women do in their houses and is not paid. We talk about the body, sexuality, body shaming, you know, all these issues affecting women of all ages. We have a couple of sculptures and a lot of video art.
Yeah, I was going to ask, you have mixed media, multimedia sculpture, fiber arts, I thought I saw in there as well. I know you have great photography and then traditional 2D work.
We have artists from different parts of the world, not only from Tijuana and San Diego. So we have videos from Costa Rica. We have a book from Brazil. We have photographies from the UK. We have a video from Norway. You know, so it's the video selection is very international, and the video language, the visual language, it's very fresh. I would call it.
So let's take a moment to watch that, and we'll kind of come back and touch base. Okay. Thanks.
Okay.
Uno de los primeros ejes es el hogar como espacio para el activismo, las micropolíticas y la agencia personal. Otro eje importante dentro de la exhibición es cuerpo e identidad, el cuerpo homenajeado, el cuerpo cuestionado o el cuerpo aceptado. Un tercer eje es reinterpretaciones, reapropiaciones, cuestionamientos a las tradiciones y herencias familiares. El cuarto, reimaginación y revalorización de roles y de las tareas domésticas. Y el quinto núcleo está compuesto por tradiciones, también identidades y migración.
I'm only an image of what you see. I'm only an image of what you see. I'm only an image of what you see. You don't know me, you don't know me, you don't know me. I'm only an image of what you see. I'm only an image of what you see. I'm only an image of what you see. You don't know me, you don't know me, you don't know me. I'm only a woman if woman is a word. I'm only a woman if woman is a word. I'm only a woman if woman is a word. Bird to be, bird to be, bird to be. I'm always coming on the inside. I'm always coming on the inside. I'm always coming on the inside. When you're coming on the outside. I'm only a figure if you could see my frame. I'm only a figure if you could see my frame. I'm only a figure if you could see my frame. Fire with no fire with no fire with no flame. I'm only a struggle if I get in your way. I'm only a struggle if I get in your way.
We were talking about the differences between film and video art. And video art is definitely dares to do more things, right? Changes the traditional ways of pointing the camera, the framing, and all these techniques that there's kind of a standard in film. Video art is just different. You could use any camera. You could use an antique camera to make a contemporary piece. So it's very fresh. That's kind of one word that describes.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the video section. So tell us about the two curators that you brought on. One of them is a video art curator specifically, and then the other one is a film curator. Tell us about the two bodies of work that they created or that they curated.
Itzel Martinez del Cañizo. She is a curator from Mexico, Tijuana, and now we live in Mexico City. She's been working with this film festival called Ambulante, which is a film festival in Mexico moving across the country. So she has a vast knowledge about film. And she created these 7 movies, amazing movies. I saw almost all of them. And these movies talk about what happens within the domestic sphere. It could be about 3 brothers taking care of their 94-year-old grandma suddenly. And what happens with, in that situation? It could be about gender violence. It could be about love. So Itzel Martinez del Cañizo brought a very specific perspective, that is not actually giving you answers on what is right and what is wrong, but is just raising more questions. It doesn't condemn men as the guilty of all the problems happening to women, but actually shows us different masculinities and how there's some people actually doing right. We have Carla Aguiñiga as a co-curator of the video art program. Carla was invited by Ingrid Hernandez, the curator of the exhibition. Carla is an artist and curator from the USA and Mexico, working in Tijuana, Los Angeles, San Diego. And Carla invited this selection of artists. Carla Aguiñiga selected video art pieces that talk about reinventing and how we make visible what is invisible within the domestic sphere, right? Like domestic work. How many hours do we work at home? How much that should be paid? And nobody talks about that.
Okay, so we're back. I mean, that was really incredible. Thank you for sharing that with us. You do have one very famous person that you're working with, Julieta Venegas, who's curating the music experiences for the show. Tell us about that.
Yes, Julieta Venegas curated a playlist on Spotify. And it is amazing. I mean, also Ingrid invited her, and Julieta has a knowledge of all this music that is related to what domestic geography is, which is resilience, resistance, domestic violence, reinventing the roles within the domestic sphere. And Julieta Venegas has selected a group of artists from Mexico, from Puerto Rico, from USA that talk about these subjects.
Yeah.
And the music is amazing.
Yeah, well, she's amazing. So I mean, as soon as I saw that, I was like, okay, I'm on it. I'm downloading all of these.
It's a very nice playlist. Yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah, she's truly amazing. What a great connection, and I'm glad that you have her support. So, are any of these artworks available for purchase? How do we get in touch with you? If there's something that calls our attention? How do we get in touch? How do we get in touch with the artist?
Yes, thank you for asking. I'm gonna share my email with you so people can contact me directly for inquiries. And inviting everybody who sees something that, hey, calls your attention, please send me a message and we can make the connections.
We'll put that information up as well. And the last thing is I'd love to, we're talking about trends in art, and I don't want to call this a trend because I want it to last, but I know that a lot of people are paying attention to artists that are BIPOC artists, Black and Indigenous people of color. And you work with a lot of, BIPOC artists, but you are also just in tune with the art world right now. So tell us who we should be paying attention to right now. Who are those, up and coming emergent artists that you really want to advocate for right now?
Yes, we have shown some artists in the gallery. We have had solo exhibitions of some of these artists or being part of group exhibitions. And I have a few names of local artists who are amazing. One of them is Rizel Javier. She is a Filipino-American artist working in San Diego, an educator, photographer. She had a solo exhibition here with us. It was very, very, very beautiful. She talks about culture, about identity, about family in a very warm way. So definitely you have to look her up. Recently, we worked with a street artist called Gerber. He just moved to San Diego 6 months ago, and he was part of the urban art exhibition that we had. We actually bought a couple of pieces. One of the hotels across the street bought a couple of pieces of him. He has a very vibrant technique, aesthetics, definitely describing all the craziness that happens in the border region. Amel Janet is, she creates drawings and paintings, most of the times in glass or in mirrors, with a very, very strong technique. And it's like just focused on the skin and the skin color, but with a very, very like a close up. So you just identify that there is a part of the body in this huge 5-foot mirror, and you can actually see yourself, but you can also see a part of this painting. She's great, and she's very, very young. So we also want to support her, and she's a good artist to look for.
Yeah, these are great. These are great recommendations. Anybody else that's just sort of out in the world that's really inspiring you right now that we should be paying attention to?
Well, yes, Irma Sofia Pueter. Irma Sofia is a very well-known artist from the region. We also had a solo exhibition of her work last year. I would also mention Fifi Martinez. She is a comic artist, so her technique, her whole body of work is different. She's focused on comics, but she calls herself your emotional cartoonist, because her comics are about love, are about depression, are about mental health. So these are the comics about a young lady just living, being in relationships where she feels sometimes disrespected, used, abused, in love, not in love, so it's very it's hard, it's easy to relate with her work.
Yeah, Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing all that information. You're such a wealth of knowledge, and I really appreciate you spending time with us today. What is your website? How do we find the front Galeria, and tell us a little bit about that, and then we'll have to say goodbye.
Yes, of course. We are on social media as The Front Arte Cultura, Instagram and Facebook. You can also find our website at thefront.casafamiliar.org, and hope you get in touch soon. Thank you, Susana, and thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much for your time today. Bye.
Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.